Donald Trump has shared a video where a speaker could be heard using abusive language for Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The video is from an interview of economist Jeffrey Sachs with Tucker Carlson. In fact, in the clip, Sachs could be heard accusing Netanyahu of manipulating the U.S. foreign policy and orchestrating an endless war in Gaza and the Middle East. Furthermore, he talks about how Netanyahu is obsessed with the U.S. Iran war. Now, the sharing of clip by Trump, remember, comes just weeks after Benjamin said that he and Trump had a very friendly, warm discussion about hostage negotiations. Recently, Trump has even gone on to warn Hamas, saying that all hell will break out in the Middle East if the hostages are not returned before his swearing in on January 20th. Let me take those points straight away to my guests who join me this afternoon, taking that opportunity to introduce them. Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador, as well as Dr. Swasti Rao, a non-resident fellow, Eastern Circles. I'm given to understand she will join us in a bit. All right, Mr. Sajjanhar, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here this afternoon. With the fact that what has been said, let me first ask you, what sort of a message do you think he's trying to send out? And more importantly, how are you reading into this statement?
Well, thank you very much, Nivedhana, for having me in your show. I think Trump is being quintessential Trump, totally unpredictable. No one can really predict what he has in mind, why he does what he does. But, of course, there can be a lot of speculation as to why exactly he has taken this path, meaning this is very well known that he is very close to Benjamin Netanyahu. They share a very strong bond. This was evident even in in his first term. You would recall that his first visit in Trump 1.0, when he came to office, it was to Saudi Arabia and to Israel. So, Israel is very close to him. He is also as strongly opposed to Iran as Israel is. He is also as strongly opposed to the Iranian nuclear deal that Barack Obama had signed with Iran in 2015. You would recall that one of the first actions that Trump did when he came to power earlier was to move out of the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that was the Iranian nuclear deal. So I think, his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, with Israel, with the Israeli lobby in the United States is very well known. It is quite clear. Now, why he has done that? Because at times, I think it can also be stated that his relationship with Netanyahu has been quite transactional. So maybe he is, trying to keep some cards open, because he has sent out a very strong message to the Hamas that all the hostages must be released before he takes oath of office on the 20th of January. Otherwise, there's going to be hell to pay for them. So maybe he wants to keep some options open as far as Bibi Netanyahu also is concerned, that, if he has something to ask of him, he'll be able to do that. He'll be able to apply pressure on him. The last point I'll make, Nivedhana, here is, you would have seen that even Mr. Biden is also very supportive of Benjamin Netanyahu, but still, the asks that Mr. Biden had of Benjamin Netanyahu, he did not care for them. He did not abide by them in terms of, allowing more relief or having a ceasefire on many occasions. And maybe Trump wants that, whenever he demands something from Benjamin Netanyahu, he will be forced to say yes, and he'll not be forced. He will not go back on his word to do what Trump tells him to do. Nivedhana.
All right, Mr. Sajjanhar, basically in your opening remarks where you're going on to point out that cards being laid out the way that it has, and perhaps that larger message to be navigating the way that it would be. I'm going to come back to you, but I'm given to understand Dr. Rao joins us. Dr. Rao, thank you very much for also taking the time out and joining us here. While Mr. Sajjanhar was, of course, giving us his perspective, how do you look at this? Because, previously the timing of it, how Netanyahu had also called their chats warm, do you think it's a lot more than what is meeting the eye, especially after this particular post?
Well, yes. I mean, if you carefully see, Donald Trump has been up to his classic Trumpian statements, and which is always to stir controversy and whip up a lot of discussion. Not only his remarks on Israel, but also I
Hmm.
mean, on Netanyahu, but also his remarks on Canada and Greenland have been creating a lot of controversy lately. So there are two things here. First is that yes, I agree with the
Right?
fact that Trump finally would be wanting to be looked upon as somebody who has been successful in bringing in war to an end. And in that respect, if you compare the situation in Russia and Ukraine versus the situation in Israel, I think the situation in Israel looks much more closer to some kind of a conclusion compared to the Russia-Ukraine one. So that's the first part. The second part is that I think Donald Trump is also somewhere keeping everybody guessing because, unlike, I mean, of course, I've been of the opinion that Donald Trump is going to support Benjamin Netanyahu on its policies, against Iran and its proxies. But having said that, the latest revelations also highlight a different angle to this discussion. And I think this is classic Trumpian strategy of keeping its opponents guessing, to the hilt, and we would see how things shape up after he comes to he comes to White House on the 20th of January. But by and large, I think that Trump would like to put an end to either of the wars, and between the two, I think the situation in Middle East looks more closer somewhat to conclusion compared to the Russia-Ukraine war, because don't forget that he had also made certain statements saying that he would bring a war to an end in 24 hours without really having a strategy of how to do that, and that situation remains
Hmm.
complex. So, I mean, this is something that we will all have to watch out for. But despite that, I don't think that the broader support is going to go anywhere. But this is more like keeping his opponents and the people that are waiting for him, because Netanyahu, of course, is not an opponent, but keeping basically all the stakeholders in
Hmm.
this game guessing as to what really Trump is going to be after. Back to you.
All right. So, in a nutshell, keeping everybody on their toes. But let me take that point back to Mr. Sajjanhar. Sajjanhar, with the fact that Sanchez also accused Netanyahu of manipulating the U.S. policy, do you buy that?
No, I think there are a number of analysts and commentators and thinkers and political activists in the United States who feel that, Benjamin
Hmm.
Netanyahu and Israel, the other prime ministers also have been taking the United States for a ride because of the very strength of the Israeli lobby in the United States and all the large number of bodies that they have, whether it is the American Jewish Committee, AJC, or APAC, American Israel Political Action Committee, who are very powerful, who are very resourceful in terms of the financial resources that they command, and also in terms of the support that they have within the Congress, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, amongst the governors, amongst the people, amongst the business community. So they feel that the Israeli leadership, and particularly Benjamin Netanyahu, because he has been in power for such a long time, that they have taken the American foreign policy, they have modulated it, they have changed it, they have worked around it to meet their own needs and their own requirements. And the United States has found itself rather helpless in the face of this, because neither the Democrats nor the Republicans can really afford to go, against Israel and against the very powerful Israeli lobby in the United States. So I think some people definitely make that charge, make that claim, and it is on the ground. It is for everyone to see how they have been playing the American politics. Even as far as, if you remember, 2015, when Barack Obama had signed the Iranian nuclear deal, the JCPOA. The Israelis were very, very unhappy, and in fact, Benjamin Netanyahu had been called by the Congress, and he addressed on this whole issue the joint session of the U.S. Congress, and against the policies of President Barack Obama to sign a deal with the nuclear deal with Iran, which would really provide some sort of a moratorium and make trading and investment open with Iran. So there has been these issues within the American polity, and I would say Jeffrey Sachs, that's his point of view. It's a very thoughtful issue that he has raised. It is for the political leadership of the United States, different parties, to take whatever action they would like to, so that they are able to protect and preserve their own, autonomy of action, which Jeffrey Sachs maintains they have not been able to do because of the machinations of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli lobby that is so powerful in the United States. Nivedhana.
All right, Mr. Sajjanhar, as you point that out, I'm given to understand Dr. Rao joins us once again. I'm guessing that she did have a technical line. All right, she's back with us. I'm putting this question across to the both of you, but I'll take that to Dr. Rao first, since you did point out about the other statements that have been made in classic Trump style, that is, even with the Greenland for that matter, while for many that might raise eyebrows as well, the bigger point over here being how strategic it is to the U.S. territory. How do you look at the other statements that have been made in the run-up to him, of course, officially coming into power in the next couple of weeks now? Dr. Rao.
Now, so very quickly, I mean, there are two things. One is that do not judge Trump by the kind of statements that he's making, because of course they do give a kind of a sneak peek into what he is planning. But at the same time, I personally don't see that he has a plan ready for either ending the Russia-Ukraine war or the Israel ceasefire. And I think these kind of things are more, they kind of tell, like I said, that this is a classic Trumpian way of actually keeping all the stakeholders guessing. Now, coming very quickly to the question that you asked me about the other statements. Now, two statements stand out. One has been on being making Canada the 51st state of the United States, which again is a pressure tactic, because if you go into the details, you will realize that there is a U.S. Mexico Canada tripartite free trade agreement, which is going to be up for renewal in 2026. And what he's basically pressurizing the United States, pressurizing Canada as well as Mexico, is to basically give up on the subsidies and try and reduce the trade deficit that these two actors have with the United States. So that is the reason that he's been doing all sorts of things with Mexico and with Canada. So that's the first part. With respect to Greenland, and here is something that I want to underscore, because generally people tend to believe that America is going to be more isolationist under Trump. America is going to withdraw from Europe under Trump, and that has been by and large the popular opinion about Trump coming back, and Europe is going to be left on its own. But if you carefully see where Greenland is, which is already a part of NATO through its membership, through the fact that it's a part of Denmark, and Denmark is a part of NATO, it has had strategic significance for U.S. military and for its ballistic missile early warning system. And if the US also maintains a permanent presence out there, and this entire thing of getting Greenland is to basically ensure that US has better hold, not just in terms of security that it already has, but also because Greenland is home to a lot of critical rare earth. And if you know that recently in the Biden era, in the last 3 years, there has been a lot of effort by the United States to reduce its dependence on China when it comes to the production of critical rare earth, for which almost the entire world is dependent. So I think Trump remains to be a very shrewd politician. He is keeping all the stakeholders guessing. He is not opening all his cards, and at the same time, he's keeping everybody destabilized. And yet, I would urge that everybody should wait for January 20th and see what he really brings on the table. That is how I interpret Trump's statements. I would not take them merely on face value. Back to you.
All right. So probably in a nutshell, if we were to look at it, all cards, like Mr. Sajjanhar also pointed out, is out there. Perhaps we'll be looking at Trump in that new season. How will that pan out, and how will these statements, really come into implementation? Well, time is going to tell us. But for the moment, Dr. Rao as well as Sajjanhar, want to thank you for joining us quickly on the show this afternoon to share with us your perspective. But I'm afraid that's all that we have time for, and we leave it at that for the moment. But before we wrap up, let's also tell you essentially what's happening in Los Angeles as far as the devastation